By 2008, our warm climate apple nursery was doing well. Meanwhile, half a world away, a substitute teacher from Oklahoma named Sharon Allen was on a missions trip, visiting a remote part of Rwanda on Lake Kivu. The poverty and suffering she saw there broke her heart, and she asked God what could she do. She wanted to give a hand, not just a handout. The answer came the next day when her interpreter and guide, Fidel, asked if they had apples in the USA. Yes, all kinds of them, she replied. Fidel said that he absolutely loved apples, but they were all imported from China or South Africa and cost about $1 each, well out of reach of most people there who only earned $30 to $40 a month. She thought, that's it, and started researching as soon as she got back home. Needless to say, the university extension services she checked were discouraging, who told her that apples needed lots of cold weather to flower and fruit, and simply would not grow in the tropics. She ran into this response over and over again and started to wonder if her vision would ever come to fruition. Finally, she came across the website of some crackpot in California who said apples would grow in a warm climate and reached out to me. I had never shipped out of the country before but knew we'd have to have permits and customs for them, and after some research sent her a list of what we needed. Sharon applied for the Rwandan import permit by mail, which she received and forwarded on in time for the 2009 season. When it came time for inspecting our shipment, it required a lot of head scratching by our local county agricultural commissioner's office, who does the inspection and issues the phytosanitary certificate needed to comply with the import permit. They're used to inspecting citrus being shipped to Asia, not apples going to Africa. But they are very accommodating and got the protocol sorted out, and soon the box is on its way to Kigali Airport. It's quite a drive from the airport to where the orchard would be, and the arrival of the trees was treated with great excitement and curiosity. Nothing like this had ever arrived there. The village got the 100 trees planted within 2 hours, and they sprouted a couple of weeks later. We didn't really know what to expect after that, or what kinds of pests and disease might attack them. Sharon returned in the spring of the next year to see how the trees were doing. Most of them had survived and were healthy, but were doing some pretty weird things. First of all, some were about 12 feet tall and really skinny. They still had the leaves from the previous season and never went dormant. On the other hand, there were some bug holes, but so far, nothing really major as far as pest or disease was concerned. Sharon emailed me photos, and I advised them to strip the leaves off and paint the trunks white to protect the bark from the African sun. They didn't have latex paint, so they used lime whitewash instead. Despite the skinny growth and lack of dormancy, a few of the trees had blossoms, which was encouraging. I set about that season to find out what was going on with the trees. Rwanda is right by the equator, and so daylight length and temperature is pretty constant all year round, the only changes being in the rainy season and dry seasons. Because of this, the trees really can't figure out when to stop growing. A tree is programmed to shoot skyward to reach the light before the other competing trees do, a property called apical dominance. The tallest part of the tree grows the fastest, which helps it reach the light sooner. Usually as autumn approaches, the shorter days and colder weather signals the trees to jettison the vulnerable leaves and prepare for winter, and it shuts down for the season. But under tropic conditions, this never happens, and the tree just keeps growing and reaching for the sun. This has a very detrimental effect on blossoming and fruiting. I did a lot of research regarding apples growing in other tropic areas such as Indonesia. It turns out that stripping the leaves off the trees is a key, and the timing is important on this. If the leaves are stripped manually at the beginning of the dry season, the trees are faked into thinking that they have already gone through winter, and since it's 80 degrees and 12 hours of daylight length, it's time to blossom and fruit. This seems to work both on low chill and high chill varieties, as the leaf stripping causes the tree to think that the chilling hour requirement, whatever it may be, has been satisfied, and is now time to blossom and fruit. We call this tropic apple culture, and it forms the basis of how apples are grown in tropic conditions. The next season, Sharon returned again and found that several of the trees had indeed fruited, but were still suffering from runaway apical dominance, with long skinny branches emanating from the base of the tree. Cutting the top of the trees helped some, but it became apparent that controlling the shape of the tree was our next issue to address. Apples bear on horizontal wood. Even when you see them forming on vertical branches, if you look closely, you'll see the apples are actually on small horizontal spurs that have formed on it. But if left to itself, the apple trees in the tropics never develop proper horizontal branching that's needed for full production, and instead produce a bush-like habit of vertical shoots. This can still bear apples as the shoots spur up, but productivity will remain low. It would be several more years before we completely figured out how to control the trees, but meanwhile, things were brewing in neighboring Uganda, which is the subject of our next video.